Today we're breaking down everybody's favorite fantasy football topic, sleepers. Usually, every year I drop this video on my birthday. I will be 26 next week. Unfortunately, I cannot wait until September 4th to drop it because most of you guys will have already had your fantasy draft. So I'm dropping it a couple of days early to celebrate. We're going to break down my top 5 sleepers, and we're going to go through what makes the best sleeper as well as some of the biggest hits in last year's video. So let's start with the running back position. What makes a sleeper running back? You guys can see the highest win rate running backs over the last 4 years. Of course, Kyren Williams, a huge name last year. We also had Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. In years past, we've seen James Robinson, so on and so forth. For running backs, the archetypes that we're looking for with our sleepers are rookies. Of course, James Robinson, Devon Achane, good examples of that. Handcuffs, which we saw from Mike Davis in 2020. Christian McCaffrey goes down. Mike Davis wins people leagues. Pass catchers, we also saw J.D. McKissic and Jerick McKinnon have really strong seasons, primarily just catching passes in PPR formats. And we also saw ambiguous backfields, meaning we don't know who the starter is. We don't know how the backfield split is going to look. That was Kyren Williams last year. That was Raheem Mostert last year, and James Conner in 2021. And obviously, if anybody fits multiple of these categories, like Devon Achane, for example, pass catcher, ambiguous backfield, and was a rookie running back, the more the merrier. So those are the kind of parameters we're looking at for sleeper running backs. For sleeper wide receivers, we want to target primarily rookies or young wide receivers. You guys can see Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Tank Dell, Jaden Reed, St. Brown. All those guys hit big time as rookies in the past couple of years. We also do see that slot receivers ended up being very solid hits in the late rounds, like Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Lockett, and Jacoby Myers twice. Sometimes you get the odd post-type sleeper like a Mike Williams, for example, who, because he's been injured or whatever the case is, he falls out of favor even though he projects pretty solid. If your sleeper wide receiver fits one of those categories, they are probably good bets as well. Now let's get into my top 5 sleepers in 2024 fantasy football. Dontayvion Wicks is number 5 on the list. We're going to go in descending order here. Dontayvion Wicks is a part of the murky, ambiguous Green Bay Packers wide receiver core. That plus politics and religion are what you're never supposed to talk about on first dates. My attitude towards this core hasn't really changed all that much from earlier in the offseason. I am not sure of anything here, so what I love doing, because I know Jordan Love is good, because I know that this team projects for 9.5 wins this year and a top 12 scoring offense, I'm just going to take the cheapest option, and that's Dontayvion Wicks. This guy had an incredible run to end the year. He was hyper efficient on his targets, posting one of the best first downs per route run of any rookie wide receiver, and according to Ryan Heath of Fantasy Points, it is one of the most predictive statistics that you can rank highly in, and as you can see there, Dontayvion Wicks on very limited volume was very good in first downs per route run. Also, 2.2 yards per route run as a rookie last year, 20% target rate, top 24 in PFF receiving grade, and 9th best PFF receiving grade from week 11 on. The peripherals are there for Dontayvion Wicks. He looks like a good player, and he had good tape in college too. The only reason he wasn't more productive is because he had a down senior season, and that's why he fell to day 3. He did have a very good reason for not being as productive as a senior. He was literally injured in a shooting that killed multiple of his teammates. So that is partially why his prospect profile was a little bit murky. In November of 2022, he was actually shot and injured in a shooting that occurred on campus. In preseason action, he has played 1 total snap, and he has a 65-yard touchdown to show for it. So this is a dude that has fought through some adversity, separated at a high level according to Matt Harmon's reception perception last year. You can see ranking very solid for a day 3 wide receiver. This is a wide receiver core with no alpha right now. We don't know if Jaden Reed's the number 1, Christian Watson's the number 1, Romeo Dobbs is the number 1, or if Dontayvion Wicks is the number 1. To me, Wicks profiles as the X receiver, profiles as the best option on the outside to command the targets, to run routes at a high level. Matt Harmon, when he charted him, actually compares him here to Nico Collins as a young player. And of course, we saw what Nico Collins was able to do in his breakout season last year. I have him straight up ranked over Romeo Dobbs. I do believe he will be on the field very often, just based on every time he gets on the field, he makes plays. And that is how you impress your coaches and show them that you deserve to be on the field very often. And of course, if you do want all of our rankings, our tiers, over overall rankings, super flex, a cheat sheet to use during your draft, risk ratings, game logs, fantasy news tracked by team. All of that stuff is in our draft guide. And if you guys want to dominate your buffoon league mates, you probably want to hit the link down below in the pinned comment or in the description. You sign up on Underdog, use promo code FSE, deposit a minimum of $10. You get this free Travis Kelce pick'em, higher or lower half a total yard for week 1, and you get our draft guide totally for free. That'll be sent to you in your email inbox within 24 hours. Can't play Underdog where you live, you already have an account. You can also get it over on flockfantasy.com, promo code FSE over there as well. Both of those linked down below in the description. So Rico Dowdle is my number 4 sleeper for 2024 fantasy football. Let's head to Dallas, because with Rico Dowdle in the backfield in Dallas there's a whole lot of washed up running backs. You got Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, who just recently signed there. Both of those guys are completely washed. I think we all know that. I have to plug my nose and draft Ezekiel Elliott on Underdog sometimes because I think he's actually half decent in best ball. But I think it's quite clear that he is no longer the same player, despite what a dominant player he was in his prime. Rico Dowdle, on the other hand, is entering year 5. 5'11", 213 pounds, ran a 4.54 at the combine, so he's got some explosiveness. Looked pretty good last year. He was a top 10 running back in yards created per touch, a top 17 running back in EPA. It's a total projection, and nobody talking about Rico Dowdle can pretend they know if he's good or not. But at the same time, if he is good, the Cowboys depth chart is so wide open for the taking. And my favorite part about Dowdle is that I think you will know right away whether or not he's going to be a hit in fantasy. I think by week 2, week 3, we're going to know what his workload is. We're going to know what his usage looks like. We're going to know if the talent is there. We're going to know if Ezekiel Elliott is going to be a pest for him and snipe him on the goal line and things of that nature. The Cowboys led all NFL teams in points per game last year. They led all NFL teams in overall first downs last year. Rico Dowdle could be an absolute league winner if he's a great running back. Or he could maybe just be like a Jalen Warren to Ezekiel Elliott's Najee Harris, which will also be a huge value late in drafts. Also sounds like Mike McCarthy is penciling him in for the third down role, according to his comments the other day, talking about how great he has been as a pass protector and how he can play on all 3 downs as a receiving back. And we did see spurts of that when he was playing alongside Tony Pollard last year. So with Rico Dowdle, again, I know it's kind of gross. We don't know if this guy's any good or not, but in the 12th, 13th round where you have to draft this guy, you can draft him, and if he stinks after 2 or 3 weeks, probably drop him for some of the hot waiver names that we usually see at the beginning of the season. So my number 3 sleeper of 2024 fantasy football is Jalen McMillan, wide receiver of my Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 213th overall ADP. So you're getting this guy with the absolute last pick in your draft. I picked him up on waivers in my home league. In our draft guide, I track all of the offseason news by team, and I sort it and I kind of piece through and kind of put things together of who's getting the hype, who's getting good usage stuff. 11 total news blurbs that are notable have come out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp. 7 of them have been about Jalen McMillan. So that is how much buzz that this guy is getting, whether it's his route running, his separation ability, his versatility to play X, his versatility to play slot, Z wide receiver. It doesn't matter. Todd Bowles, the coaching staff, Liam Cohen, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, whoever gets in front of a microphone talks about how good Jalen McMillan is. And it is a massive, massive deal in my opinion, because as Coach Speak Index has talked about, Todd Bowles is very, very reliable when it comes to usage and how players are going to be deployed. In my time as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I have never, ever heard a drumbeat so loud for one singular player, especially a rookie, and he has absolutely looked the part so far this preseason. In the preseason games he's played, he has commanded 37.5% targets per route run rate and a 3.56 yards per route run. Jacob Gibbs, this tweet that I'm referencing here, he actually cut up all of his routes, and you can see this dude is just a smooth operator. Not only am I confident he will be out there running routes as the number 3 wide receiver as soon as week 1, but Chris Godwin has not been the same player the last couple of years. Since his ACL tear back in 2021, he hasn't really looked the same. He hasn't been the same level of explosiveness, and I would not be shocked at all if Jalen McMillan was the number 2 wide receiver behind Mike Evans for the rest of the season as the season goes along, as he gets his sea legs under him. My comp for him coming out of the University of Washington was Jackson Smith-Njigba. I had him ranked as a top 11 receiver in the draft. He was banged up his final year at Washington, but in 2022, he and Rome Odunze were neck and neck in terms of production, and in 2023, when all 3 wide receivers for the Washington Huskies were on the field together, McMillan was right there with Odunze in terms of target share. He actually outproduced him in terms of touchdowns. Jalen McMillan has the ability to separate short areas, which is going to be a factor in the red zone. So for me, again, I know it's a little bit of a homer pick because I'm a Buccaneers fan, but I really do think that Jalen McMillan has a chance to be one of the breakout, drop all your waiver wire type of stud guys that you get off of waivers first week or two of the season. So try and avoid spending all that fab and just take him with the last pick in your fantasy draft and see what happens. Hold him for the first 2 to 3 weeks of the year. Maybe you get a viable wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 flex play out of it, or hell, maybe he's even better than that, and him and Baker Mayfield develop a great chemistry. So staying with a University of Washington wide receiver, my number 2 sleeper heading into 2024 fantasy football drafts is his former college teammate, Jalen Polk, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. 167th overall is his ADP. So again, very similar case to McMillan. You're getting a late round rookie wide receiver. Both of these guys were teammates in college. Both of them got alphaed by Rome Odunze. He was the clear number 1 in that offense. But here is why I love Jalen Polk. He was a complete wide receiver prospect. He didn't do anything at an elite level, but he did everything extremely well. My comp for him was Rashee Rice, because I think when you look at what Rashee Rice did in the NFL his rookie season, it was short and intermediate targets, get the ball in his hands, let him work after the catch, get him on slants, get him on drags, get him on curl routes, get the ball in his hands, basically, is what you want to do with a guy like Jalen Polk. I guess a big part of why I like Jalen Polk is situation meeting the kind of talent that I saw from him on display in college, because I love Drake May. You guys know this. I think Drake May is going to be a superstar level quarterback. I have loved what I've seen from him so far in the preseason. I think before long, Jacoby Brissett will be on the bench and Drake May will be starting games at quarterback for the New England Patriots. And both of these guys have made some nice plays in preseason so far together. I think Drake May and Jalen Polk will be a connection that is going to be something that could win people leagues long term, and even in the short term provide some good PPR value. There are no proven targets in this offense. Demario Douglas, not really proven. Javon Baker, who they also drafted in the 4th round, not proven. They have KJ Osborne as their veteran presence. Kendrick Bourne coming off of a torn ACL. There are no proven targets in this offense. I believe the 37th overall pick in the NFL draft, Jalen Polk will be number 1 in terms of pecking order of routes, in terms of targets. I believe he has a chance to be the number 1 receiver here. And especially with the way that Drake May plays quarterback, he led all NCAA quarterbacks in 2022 throwing over the middle of the field. I think Jalen Polk's best deployment will be as a slot receiver, or at least in a short to intermediate role. And I think him and Drake May can connect for a lot of PPR targets in that area of the field. It is an excellent fit, and I think Jalen Polk has a chance really to be kind of this year's Jaden Reed, this year's Rashee Rice, this year's Tank Dell, this rookie wide receiver who kind of got overlooked a little bit, who's going in the double-digit rounds because we don't really feel great about the offense. But all of those guys had one thing in common, and that was opportunity in front of them. Rashee Rice was in an unproven wide receiver core. Tank Dell, unproven wide receiver core. Jaden Reed, unproven wide receiver core. I think Jalen Polk comes in right away and commands the most targets in the New England Patriots offense, especially once Drake May is starting at quarterback. So moving into my final sleeper, my number 1 sleeper for 2024 fantasy football this year. I did hit big on a couple of sleepers last year. Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Zay Flowers, Sam Laporta were all in that video last year. Of course, I put Sky Moore on the thumbnail because I'm a complete buffoon. But my number 1 sleeper this year is J.K. Dobbins, running back of the Los Angeles Chargers. ADP right now of 155th overall, so you're talking 12th, 13th round pick right now. I'm not even going to give the fake doctors in the comments section the satisfaction of trying to educate me on Achilles tears for running backs, because I am aware of the data. It is not good. Left ACL multi-ligament contact tear to his knee 3 years ago, and now a torn Achilles that he is coming off of. J.K. Dobbins has been very injury prone to this point in his career. Comes back last year from 2 years removed from the ACL tear, has 11.7 PPR points in the first half of week 1, and then he blows his Achilles. I don't know how unlucky you can get, but apparently that is just the J.K. Dobbins life. These excerpts have been taken from Dr. Jesse Morris's website, Injury Experts. Highly recommend that you guys go check that out. But basically what he outlines here is that similar to Tariq Cohen, Cam Akers, James Robinson, Deontay Foreman, Justice Hill, Marlon Mack, Caleb Huntley, and Isaiah Crowell, that is the list of running backs that have suffered torn Achilles in the last 7 years or so. None of them really have come back to form outside of Deontay Foreman in limited roles. When he's gotten opportunities, he's looked good. But Cam Akers and James Robinson, some of these guys were really highly thought of in the fantasy community, and they just completely fell out of favor after this injury. But here is why I like J.K. Dobbins still, because I really understand all of the medical risk that we have here. But this is why I'm okay with it. Number 1, he's 25 years old. He's a 9.5 relative athletic score athlete coming out of college. He is a really, really good athlete. That bodes well for his ability to rehab from injuries. Number two, he is far cheaper than Cam Akers was coming off of his injury. He is far cheaper than James Robinson was coming off of his injury. Those guys were top 5, top 6 round picks that you had to spend. J.K. Dobbins is going way after that, 12th, 13th, 14th round in most people's leagues. And then finally, if, and it's a big if, he can return to his pre-injury form, we know he's a very good running back. We've already seen it. Let's check the boxes with J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, in his career, averages 5.8 yards per carry. He has 43.4% missed tackles force rate in the last full season that he played in 2022. And again, he was coming off of a torn ACL, 1 year removed from multi-ligament ACL surgery, and he forced a missed tackle on 43% of his touches. He is back with Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator, who he basically did most of that damage with when he was with the Ravens. He has beaten out Gus Edwards not once, but twice for the starting job. So if his only competition in the backfield is Gus Edwards, he's already beaten this guy out before. Gus Edwards, I might remind you, is also 29 years old and has a lengthy injury history as well, including an offseason cleanup procedure for the torn ACL he suffered 2 years ago. Justin Herbert is an elite NFL quarterback. We all know that this offense is probably going to be pretty good because they have Justin Herbert. This team wants to run the football. They drafted Joe Alt instead of Malik Neighbors at number 5 overall to bolster their offensive line, making it one of the best run blocking lines in the NFL. He is the best receiving back also on this roster, and we know Justin Herbert has gravitated towards throwing his running backs the football. Of course, he had Austin Eckler for that, but it is still a tendency nonetheless. Now let's check some timeline boxes, because in addition to all that stuff, again, I'm okay stomaching the injury. I think that the upside, if he is healthy, is really good. Now let's see if this all adds up kind of chronologically here. On April 29th, J.K. Dobbins came out and he said he was 100% healthy. I screamed to draft this guy in best ball. I get flamed on Twitter and nobody listened. June 23rd, Daniel Jeremiah on the Move to the Sticks podcast, Daniel Jeremiah, the voice of Chargers Radio, says, if you guys are in a fantasy draft J.K. Dobbins. I, again, go to Twitter, get flamed for saying that you should draft J.K. Dobbins, and maybe some people listened to me, maybe they didn't. July 25th, he is fully practicing in training camp, no injury concern whatsoever. People really started paying attention and moving him up the ranks at that point in time. July 30th, the pads come on. Dobbins is taking first-team reps at training camp over Gus Edwards, over Kamani Vidal, and Vidal is literally 6th on the depth chart entering camp. All preseason, Dobbins hasn't played. He's been rested with the starters. 6th-round pick Kamani Vidal barely made the roster, and Gus Edwards, like I said, was announced that he underwent a cleanup surgery to his knee this offseason. So I don't know about you guys, but all signs point to take the risk on J.K. Dobbins here, because what is the worst that can happen realistically? You draft J.K. Dobbins in the 13th round. He sucks. He gets injured again. Whatever the case is, that is the downside risk. You drop him, you churn the waiver wire, and you go on your merry way. You pick up, whatever running back pops off in week 2 or week 3, and you want to drop J.K. Dobbins for him. That is the downside risk with J.K. Dobbins. You are getting him at a point where it is all upside and no floor. You do not have to be worried about what happens if he misses, because 13th round picks miss all the time. I can think of the guys that I've drafted in the 13th round the last couple of years, and it is not very good hit rates in that area of the draft. So with J.K. Dobbins, I have a legitimate top 20 upside running back here if things break right for him in the late rounds for an elite rushing offense, pass catching upside for a quarterback who's one of the best 5 to 10 on the planet and can make this offense very good. Again, some honorable mentions just because I didn't talk about tight ends and quarterbacks in this video. Some sleeper tight ends that I like: Ben Sinnott, Jatavian Sanders, the 2 rookie tight ends I do think have a chance to be, waiver ads at some point this year. Also like Greg Dulcich getting back healthy for the Broncos. And Tucker Kraft is definitely my favorite sleeper tight end of the Green Bay Packers. Been making a lot of noise in camp, only going low because Luke Musgrave is going ahead of him. Sleeper quarterbacks, again, the guys that I talked about last year all ended up being pretty good. I talked about Sam Howell. I talked about Anthony Richardson, who was good for a couple of games. And I talked about Brock Purdy, who was the best of them all. This year, the formula is pretty simple. If you want a pocket passer, get a guy with good weapons. Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, those type of guys are good late-round sleeper quarterbacks to go after. If you want a guy that can run, you could go after Deshaun Watson, who, of course, has been a top 5 fantasy quarterback multiple times. Could go after Drake May, and you could go after Bo Nix. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. If you want our draft guide, like I said, hit the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. You can get our rankings, overall, super flex, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, all of our tiers, 2023 fantasy points per game, so you can see how they performed last year, our contextualized game log series, our risk ratings, our fantasy news updates, everything in the draft guide to help you guys take down your buffoon league mates. Hit the link down below. Sign up on Underdog Fantasy, deposit $10, $10. Use code FSE. Draft guides in your inbox within 24 hours. It is that simple. Hit the link down below to get started. If you can't play on Underdog or you already have an account, check out flockfantasy.com. Tons of bonus content over there. Use the promo code FSE for 7 days for free, 30% off, and 6 months for free when you sign up annually over there. So with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.